Welcome to Center Stage with Angelina and Remi. And today's episode, we are going to talk about our Italy trip. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So stay tuned. Well, welcome back, and we're going to start off by discussing the things that Remi and I experienced while traveling in Italy. And we titled this one, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And as we get into it, you will understand why. But, so I made a list, Remi, just to kind of keep me on point. But I wanted to first talk about the highlights of the trip. And we had lots of those.
Yes, we did.
And, but the first one that I have on here was the incredible snow.
Yes, we were definitely fortunate to be there for that.
Yes, we were. And, you know, let's see, because you did a little bit of research in it, and you had found that prior to, let's see, the last snow was, you said 2011.
2012.
Oh, okay. So the last snow was in 2012, but then prior to that, it had been like 25 years since it had snowed. And so it was a true treasure to be there and, you know, be a part of the snowfall in Rome, because...
Well, the funnier part about that is that, you know, we all, you know, sleep well being away from home, or we don't. Some people just don't. And she didn't even know it snowed.
I didn't until that morning.
She said, I'm going to go run over here and do this. And I said, well, have you looked outside? And she said, no. I said, it snowed last night. So it was a beautiful
and it was an incredible sight. And, you know, I got out in it that morning, and it was beautiful. And one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much, you know, that morning getting out in it, is because there were very little people out.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, and even though Remi and I, you know, visited in the off season, it was still just loads and loads of crowds of people. And so, you know, that particular morning, since, you know, there was, you know, snow on the ground, there were not a lot of people that were out, you know, venturing out in it. So it was very nice. I got some lovely shots. And so I'll be sharing those, you know, within this episode as well. But yeah, I have some really, really But yeah, so the snow was like, you know, it was incredible. And because I was telling my husband that it's very, you know, the thought of it snowing there is comparable to, like, we're here in the South. And so, you know, it would be like snow in Florida. And so, I mean, you know, so it was incredible to, you know, to be there. So,
yes, it was.
Oh, and then the second thing that I have as one of my highlights is the gelato. And the gelato was incredible.
I almost wish I hadn't had any at all. I miss it terribly.
Now you love it.
I know, that's the problem.
And, you know, and that, because I had visited Rome about 10 years ago, and that was one of my highlights then too. And so I have been waiting for 10 years for true Italian gelato again, and they did not disappoint.
No,
And I mean, it was incredible. And all the different, you go into the gelato shops, and there's just a huge, layout of different selections.
It's like our ice cream stores, shops. They do the same way.
Right.
So, but to me, I had never had gelato. I think I may have had it once. But it didn't taste anything like that.
Right, yes. Not the true.
Not the real thing.
Not the real thing.
That's right.
Nothing can match it.
That's right. That's very true. If you want real gelato, you got to go to Italy.
And I believe my favorite flavor, because we had gelato many times over there, but I think my favorite flavor would have to be, now I can't think of the... Pistachios.
Pistachios.
Yes. That was my
favorite
favorite this go around. So it was. So what was your favorite out of the times that we have gotten gelato?
I had mint chocolate chip, I think.
Did you?
I did.
Now that's my favorite kind of ice cream. That's my favorite flavor of ice cream. But I didn't have any of the mint chocolate chip.
But it was the white vanilla kind. It wasn't the green. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was different, but it just was fabulous. So there's not much to say except that it was fabulous. How fabulous it was.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was wonderful. And
I have the hips to prove it.
Although, I don't think we really put even all the eating that we did and the splurging, with the gelato and everything. I don't think there's no way we could have put on any weight at all because we were doing loads of activities. Yeah. We were up and going and, all the walking that we did. So, I mean, we definitely got our cardio in.
Yes, we did.
And,
we did.
So, yeah. But, and this was quite a treat. We had a day of beauty while in Rome.
Yes, we did.
I mean... it's not something that you really think about, like planning to do on an Italy trip. Done that. It was so nice. Because it was a rainy day, and
it rained a lot.
It did. It rained
Rome.
the majority. I would say the majority. It rained more days than it didn't.
That's right.
And so it was a little challenging dealing with the rain.
A little bit, yeah. It was so cold.
And yes, it was very cold.
I love cold weather, and so do you.
I do.
We're very much alike in this way. I do not believe that I have another family member or anything that loves cold, and I do too. And so it wasn't that you don't like it, but it's at times it just got so the wind was blowing so hard, it really almost hurt.
And getting wet too.
Yes.
I mean, it's a whole different ball game when you throw in being wet from the rain along with the wind and everything else. So at times I think I dealt with it a little better than Remi did. I know you got quite...
Well, I have several years on her, so take that note.
That's what we'll blame it on. We'll say that was the cause.
It is. I mean, I have snow skied and cold weather. I've done all that. For some reason, though, it was just... It really was cold.
And I think it was from just the dampness.
I think that's what caused a lot of it. So I just, I really didn't bring a lot of stuff to wear in wet weather.
Right, Yeah, because we really didn't anticipate as much rain as what we ended up having because we, of course, checked the weather report days leading in, up to our trip of us leaving. And at that time, they had only predicted, scattered showers, I think, on maybe 2 of the days. But, but getting into the trip, I mean, it was, let's see, we were there for 10 days, and I think we probably had about 6 days of rain at some point during the day. And so we did deal with a good bit of rain.
But we looked beautiful.
We did. We
had
did.
Our hair done. We looked
And then with our fancy hats that we had on, we just...
I know that. That's right.
And let's see. Oh, and the beautiful Vatican and Sistine Chapel. That was one of my favorite outings.
Took us 3 times.
It did. I was just fixing to mention that. On the 3rd trip, we were able to finally, go inside. But, we still didn't get to see the inside of the basilica. Even, but we did go to the museums, and we did go to the Sistine Chapel.
Yes.
And the Sistine Chapel, I mean, it never disappoints.
No,
it's an amazing sight to see.
Nothing.
Yeah, and it's just it's incredible. I mean, it's breathtaking,
Yes,
and and it was so overwhelming. I think a lot of it I couldn't really take everything in, and I'm not talking about the Sistine Chapel now, but just everything in the Vatican, in the museums and the other rooms with all of the artwork and the grandeur of everything. It was just so much of it. And then you had but it was so crowded. It was incredibly crowded, and it really kind of takes away from the experience because you can't really focus very well on what is there to see because you're just
moving you down.
Right.
You're kind of having to move with the crowd.
Right.
So you don't have much time.
And so you do miss out a little bit on being able to focus on certain things there, but the Sistine was just it was incredible. But and let's see. Oh, and funny, it was quite fun. I think you thought this was fun as well, but having our portraits drawn. Now, the end result was a little weird. I wouldn't say that, we were having our likeness drawn, but it's on a scale of 1 to 10, it got a -0 in the actual true likeness because and as a matter of fact, I'll share the pictures, of the actual drawings. Right.
And so they look like you, but all your, my nose is bigger and my glasses are bigger. But this simply, the artistic ability was there. It just didn't look like us.
No.
But the funnier thing is that even so I saw that he did not capture her beauty or likeness, I then had mine done.
You thought the second go around, surely he would get better.
That's right. Maybe he can pull it together. Maybe. I'm going to have mine done in Rome.
But a cue that I should have taken, that things may not have been going so well as far as like what it looked like in comparison to to me, was that when people would stop and look at his work, they were kind of like, they would make like this, not, it was just like an odd face, and so now I understand, because they were looking at that and going, it just, okay.
Why?
Is she paying for this?
I don't know why though. I decided to do them. I do not know.
For the experience. I mean, how many times can you say, you know, I mean.
No, that's right. I had my portrait drawn in Rome.
Yes, that's right. And we have an original piece of art.
There you go.
Know?
There you go.
It's still, you know.
By a Roman.
Right.
There you go.
You know, now since we've announced it to the world, otherwise we could have said we just bought this original artwork and not had said that it was supposed to be us. You know, but
that's
now.
Right. I could have framed it and said, that's an old aunt of mine.
Or it was just
or
it was just an original piece of artwork that you bought in Rome, because we did. I mean, you know, that would not be lying.
That's right.
But now since we've announced it to the world, we can't go there with it. We have to. Of us.
That's right.
But nonetheless, it was still a wonderful experience. You know, I will always remember sitting there and kind of holding that pose forever. You know,
but she looked so pretty that everybody was stopping to look at her. She didn't realize that, but it was true.
I don't know about that now.
Yes, I do.
But let's see. Oh, and just I have on here just the wonderful food, because all the dinners we had in the evening, and you know because we had 2 apartments while we were there, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about the purpose of the second one. It's actually in my the bad, or I don't know if that's bad or ugly.
Well, when you were in the sheriff playhouse, it's ugly. Depends on where you're standing, but it's okay.
But at our, we had to move over to a second apartment, and it was in a different part of town. But this apartment had a restaurant at the street level. It was a multi-level apartment, but at the street level there was a wonderful restaurant there. Yes, and most evenings, once we had moved over to that apartment, I think we probably had dinners mostly there.
I think we did.
And I know we had breakfast there quite often.
Yes, we did.
Just about every morning, I believe, once we had moved over there.
I've gotten used to eating breakfast, now I just have to have it. So
yeah, I know.
It was so nice to go down there, though, and have it there. I mean, it just made a big difference.
It did. And it was wonderful. We had wine and dessert several evenings, and quite a few of those.
Yes,
but hey, while in Rome,
that's right. Yes, you must. That's right.
So yes, so the food was outstanding, And now, what would you say was your favorite meal? Do you have a favorite meal?
Well, I gotta tell you, we had lunch in a darling little restaurant, and I do not know what they did. Remember, I had spaghetti.
Oh.
And I
yes, I remember you saying how good it was. Now, this was the gluten-free spaghetti, right? Was this the gluten-free?
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm not positive though, but it was. I do not know what they did to it because the sauce on it was. I said just I don't eat. I'm a vegan, so I try not to eat anything with meat in it. Well, I don't eat meat, but anyway, and it came and it wasn't thick or anything. It was real different. It was just a light kind of sauce. But those were the best spaghetti noodles I have ever had, and I don't. It was almost like they were infused with flavor. If you think about it, don't you remember me saying?
Yes, I do recall you mentioning.
How good
several times. How
really
how
that was about that was really, and this was just lunch. And I'm not sure where we were.
I don't remember. Now I guess But I do recall you mentioning several times during the dinner, this is so good.
Oh, God, it was good.
And I
want some right now.
I guess I would, if I had to choose my favorite dinner, I would have to say it was a fish restaurant that I had gone over to because it was one evening where you weren't feeling well or something. But anyway, so I had gotten out and I just went across the street. Yeah. And so and I didn't eat a lot of it, but it's that it was so different. It was something that I had never had an opportunity to try, and because it was for me it was exotic. Most people may not think it was exotic.
I think most people would because
I had octopus. Well, it was octopus, and as a matter of fact, my dad had said when I had gotten back home and I called him and he said, "Gal, was that octopus on that plate?" And I said, "It sure was, Daddy." Yeah, he sure did. He said, "Gal, was that octopus?"
But you know what? It was very interesting. This restaurant was kind of different, but I didn't realize it was an all seafood kind of place.
Yeah, they only served seafood.
But she showed me the picture of the octopus, and I knew immediately that's what it was. and I was really glad I had jet lag that night, and I missed out on that. Except that it's a lot of fun to try something different.
Yeah, and it was. And, and I thought the taste was very similar to lobster.
Oh, yeah.
I love lobster. I mean, it still wasn't lobster. It still wasn't lobster. But
you won't give it that ranking.
Right. There was a little bit of hint of, a similarity there. But it kind of had that same texture, and although it was denser, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Did you put it in butter?
No, no. I just maybe I was supposed to. I don't know, but no. There was now. It was in kind of a plate that had some sauce on it, I think.
Yeah, there was some. She will post a picture.
Right? I will. Oh yes.
You'll get to see it. You'll know it's lobster because it's got those little sucker things.
Well, not lobster, but octopus.
Octopus, so you'll know that's what it is.
But the dessert because because Remi and I went a couple of nights later and had just dessert and wine over there, and they had the best dessert. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was a beautiful really presentation, and then it tastes. I mean, it was like a work of art to look at it. I mean, I hated to eat it because it was beautiful in the presentation.
I made her do that. I made her eat it.
Oh, yes. I would not have otherwise. I mean, I was kicking and screaming the whole way.
The whole time. It was just a real bad thing.
Yeah, I had to hold it down. It was, it was. But let's see. The restaurant at the street level. And I had just written the restaurant at the street level of our apartment, but we discussed
also,
that.
Just wanted to mention, right next to the interesting restaurant where she had the octopus, and we had the desserts, right next door to it was just a kind of walk-in, very small bar, and it was not large at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very charming place, and we had some wonderful sparkling wine.
Now, is this the place that was called The Place?
That's it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the reason why I remembered it back then, I don't know, but I remembered it because I, growing up in where I grew up, we had a place that was called The Place, and it was where everybody went for the cool clothes back in the dark ages when I was a kid. But anyway, so that's why I remembered that.
But it was just The Place, and it was
right.
The Place.
It was The Place. That's right. We were there, so it was very important.
Oh yes. Yeah, we put it on the map.
Yes, we have.
And one of the highlights for me, the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill. I really enjoyed. Hill. I really enjoyed that, and interestingly enough, we met a gentleman that was he was a tour guide.
Yes.
He wasn't, we weren't taking a tour, but we were actually just sitting. I think we were trying to make our way up to Palatine Hill, I believe, but we were just sitting in this area where there was a bench, and I think we were trying to take pictures.
We were taking pictures.
Yeah, and we were taking. And he just offered to take pictures of us.
Both of us.
But what was so interesting about the encounter was that he was from Florida.
Yeah, he was.
And and here he was working in Rome and as a tour guide, and also something to do with football? He was a coach as well. I forget what he...
different. I can't remember either, but he was very interesting. And he definitely loved Rome. I mean,
because his sister was there. Because he said, because he had been there a couple of years, I think he said. And then his sister had just recently moved over.
But his is not permanent, I believe.
Right. Yeah, I think he said he only planned to stay...
I had to yawn. I couldn't help it.
If you could have seen your face.
I know. I was trying to hold it in. I really was trying. I turned my back. It was coming
Oh, okay.
I was like a locomotive. There's no way I can stop it. I think that headache medicine has made you a little sleepy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it probably
I
has.
took it right before I came over.
Okay, we'll do a long pause.
But
I looked over and I mean,
I know it was awful because I went.
but it was the expression on your face. It's like you were trying not to yawn while yawning, and
Didn't come out.
and then with your head kind of distorted because you were turned, you know. But so I think he was going to be there for
Just
another
a
year or so, and then he was going to move back home.
Yeah.
But of all places, I mean, here I am in Europe, and it just felt so odd. I mean, of course, everyone from all over the planet,
Right.
comes to visit Rome,
That's right.
but for some reason, it just felt so ironic
It
to
did.
meet someone from Florida.
I had a friend of mine that was in Paris, and she was there looking at a museum, and she looked up, saw a person she knew from her hometown. I mean,
Yeah, it is a small world. I mean,
it's a small world. It is.
But let's see. Oh, and the number one experience, what the top of the list, the cream of the crop, was the tour that we had in the Colosseum, in the dungeon part, in the very bottom. That was incredible.
That was. It was.
And
we had a wonderful tour guide too.
Right, she was very good. She was very, easy to understand,
and that's important.
Oh, it's very, especially for me, because I do not do very well at all with accents.
That's because hers is very strong and she doesn't understand.
I can only understand my own.
I'm just kidding. I have one myself,
but that was just, that was breathtaking.
It was.
To be down, there in the bottom area where, the gladiators and, where they house the animals and just, just walking down there and being, filling that space or sharing that space, with what came before. I mean, it was a very moving experience. very memorable.
Yes, it was. She was good also. She answered questions. I think everybody who goes down there will experience it in their own way.
Of course, yes.
You know, there's some brutality to that history.
Oh, there is.
So doing the work I do, I pick up on that.
But society was different
It was.
in that time period. I mean, it's so barbaric to think of today, but I mean that was just normal. As strange, as hard as it is to really to understand. I mean that was what it was back then.
It was.
But anyway, so but I just wanted to share the highlights, and stay tuned because tomorrow, we are not going to do a tomorrow episode on here. Let's just make this a 2-part episode, because I know this has gotten a little lengthy.
Yeah.
And
but that's because it was such a great experience.
That's right. And so we will do it'll be continued off of this, but we'll make it a separate video.
Right.
But we'll discuss the bad and the ugly. So we have talked about the good.
That's right.
And so stay tuned for the bad and the ugly. You'll want to hear it, because there's a lot of laughter and comedy that falls in that as well.